Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. I'm your host, Rob Mess. Today's topic, A Guide's Life, Bears and Belugas with Churchill expedition leader, Kristina Disney. Kristina, thank you so much for being here today and to consenting to do this interview with me. Happy to have you here.
My pleasure.
So let's just dive right in. Let's start at the beginning. Tell me, where were you born and raised?
Sure. So I grew up, Churchill is in Manitoba. And so you can kind of take a quick look on this map here. I dropped a little gold star where Churchill is. So I grew up in the next province just to the west. Saskatchewan and Manitoba are kind of like bickering younger siblings in Canada. That's the way I personify them. We're very competitive. We both, our Canadian football teams for a while were both neither very good. So there's always a lot of back and forth. And so when I started working in Manitoba, it was almost sacrilege, but it was okay. My dad's actually born in Manitoba, so there's a little bit of crossover there. But I grew up farming there, and I'm the youngest of four, and I did a terrible thing when I finished high school. I was the black sheep of my family. I ran away and went to university, so was definitely a disappointment in that regard. I'm joking. I mean, they actually 50-50. They've never gotten over I left the farm.
What kind of farm was it?
Yeah, well, it's still active. My mom still runs it. So we do beef cattle, and then we also do things like cereal crops, so peas, canola, lentils, barley, wheat, sometimes feed corn, kind of, and then hay for our own animals and to sell. So most of my summers were out. I mean, summer and winter it's my life has always been seasonal. Maybe that's kind of one of the things that is like always been true, and maybe is why I chased guiding and a few other things. But like my life has always revolved around the seasons, and I'm the happiest when I keep with that sort of flow. Like I kind of struggle if you ask me to be consistent and do the same thing all year. That's when I almost implode.
You like to keep yourself engaged and doing different things. I
Yeah.
completely understandable. Well, great. Well, that's an interesting way to grow up, of course, on a farm. Not tons of people do that anymore. So let's switch gears a little bit. Before we dive into your professional life, let's talk about how you like to spend your time when you aren't working. What interests you outside of work? I know you have a vast education and you know a lot. So what do you do to unwind and have fun?
I honestly struggled with this when you asked me about it because I was like, what do I do for fun? I am a workaholic, Rob. I am 100% a workaholic. I just bounce from one thing to another. Um, but thankfully I kind of stopped. I was like, oh no, okay, we do things for fun. So last fall, I guess there's a couple levels of this. So about a year ago, I took a break actually and went to culinary school and had a really good time. It was actually so much fun. I just made beautiful food for 4 months and met new friends, all those good things. But of course, you leave that like environment that's designed for something so specific, and it's hard to maybe integrate that skill level back into daily life. So when I came home to Victoria, we started dumpling club. So about once a month, yeah, maybe once a month, once every couple months, we pick a different dumpling. Also, the definition of dumpling is very more argumentative than you would think. Some what we've made, people were like, that's not a dumpling. So we have a very loose term of dumpling, so we can kind of mix and match cultures. We made empanadas a couple months ago. This is us making soup dumplings just before Christmas. So yeah, I really love to cook. I love food. Food is like such an important part of culture and traveling and like learning to do those things. And it's also just like, so yeah, I mean, food is like one of the best sources of joy in my opinion. So this is what I do to unwind.
Well, that's terrific. So you said these are soup dumplings you made here?
Yeah, so soup dumplings, if you don't know what those are, it's because they have broth on the inside, and the way you actually make them is kind of tricky, or it's a bit of a magic trick. You create a gelatin with the broth, and then you mix the gelatin with the meat mixture, and then when you cook them, and then that first bite that you take, you actually get the release of the broth. It's really cool. It's a fun like inside out sort of thing.
But I think that's a really interesting balance to your scientific life. I guess there is some science to cooking as well, but it's great to have a creative outlet and also it looks delicious. So
It was
Um,
pretty good. I'm pretty proud of those ones. Or we did a good job on those ones. I was proud.
all right. Well, I think it's time to dive into your professional life. When we know that you like to cook and unwind, but let's talk about what inspired you to enter into your chosen field, and let's talk about your education, to what path it took you and how it led you to your chosen field.
Okay. I um actually, I guess this is fortunate or not, but I can remember the exact moment when I knew I was gonna go into biology or biology-esque ecology, something like that. I think I was in grade 10 or grade 11, so I hadn't started applying for universities yet. But we were farming is a lot of hurry up and wait. It is hurry up and plant things as fast as you can and then wait for it to grow. It's sit in the field and wait for someone to drop off fuel and then come back over here. It's like it's just this continual hurry up and wait. And so when you're the youngest, like I was, you're never not the baby. Doesn't matter how much you grow up, siblings never let you forget that you're still the baby.
Yep.
Um, there's no time to sit around. I'm going to be honest, right? Like you're sort of waiting for the next equipment to roll through or whatever it might be. And I remember sitting on the gravel road and I was just staring at a group of butterflies. There probably was 50 or 100. And so there's a puddle in the ground, like kind of what this picture's here, or what I wanted to depict here. Not the original picture, but, or the original moment. And all of these butterflies were just congregating so intensely on like the one side of the puddle, and I was just so fascinated by this. I was like, why are they there? What are they doing? Why are they like, what is going on with these butterflies? And I thought about it for like the whole day, like the butterflies, running fuel, doing this, driving the tractor, whatever it was. I was like, still thought about the butterflies. And I was like, oh, I was like, I love figuring out how the world works, like how nature works. And it's not just, people have asked me, what's your favorite animal? It's not about favorite animal for me. It's like, how does the system work? It's that invisible spider web with ecology where you flick one thing and all these other species sort of vibrate through it. Like that's the part I was like, that I could chase, that I could spend my life doing. So to answer this question, now that I've grown up a little bit and looked into this, they're after the minerals and they like mud, they like feces, they like gross things because the males are actually trying to get some of those minerals that they need in their own body for reproduction. So most of the time it's the males you see in along the ponds. So that only took, 20 years to answer that question. I didn't
Okay,
answer it. Someone else answered it.
I was wondering how long it took you to answer, but just opening up your mind and thinking about the whys and the hows is what intrigued
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
That's
Like it's a big tangled web, right? I love figuring out how we fit into it and how other things fit into it. And um, everything's here's a good time for it to say like the butterfly effect, right? These little ripples happen, and you can chase them. You can chase them through an ecosystem. You can chase them through time, space. Like it's a yeah, it's my favorite part. Those are my favorite puzzles to solve.
and it was an actual butterfly that actually started your butterfly effect, which is really quite fascinating.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So,
and
or sorry, I'll just. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
now I was just gonna ask, being on a farm too, and learning about how animals live and feed. I'm sure that played a part in your curiosity of the world too.
I think it played a really big part in. I mean, definitely curiosity. You have a lot of room to see and learn and observe. But I think the biggest thing when I think about what growing up on a farm means to me now, besides work ethic and other things, is like how I perceive my relationship to an ecosystem or just to the land or other animals. Like um truly where we grew up very semi-arid, like it's a thin margin between like life and death, success and failure. Lots of farms failed during my childhood because of the what was it called? BSE, bovine. There's a neurological disease that went through, but I can never remember what. Anyways, it like wiped out a bunch of farms, and so my childhood really was, um, or at least my parents really ingrained into me that like you take care of the land and the land takes care of you, right? It wasn't that like, pillage mindset where it was farm as much as you can, drill. It was like you needed the soil to be in good enough and healthy enough shape to have another crop there the next year. And then as I grew up, which is interesting, so you grow up doing these things, and then I go to university and have professors say, and so then you start questioning like the rules that you live by, not in the sense like that you take care of the land, but like my parents use pesticides, like there's chemicals, there's all these things, which were just normal and commonplace. And then you grow up, you read things like Rachel Carson's Silent Springs, and so you get this sort of conflicting narrative of what my parents told me was taking care of a place, which disagreed with what, someone from wherever where I was learning. And so I actually had like a few, I think I can remember it. His name was Tim Moore. He was a professor, and I had my first toe-to-toe like debate with a professor in this 200-person classroom about farming practices, because, and so I do this a lot. I stick up for them a lot because when you're sorry, we have hit a rabbit hole. You can tell me when to pull this out anytime,
This is
but
fascinating. Let's keep going.
so ecology, or I'll just stick with agriculture for me, gets taught very black and white, um, conventional bad, chemicals bad, which I'm not saying they're not, I'm right, but, and then organic good. Now in practice, it is a much grayer zone. There are lots of really great things that are considered organic practices that everyone does. Even if they use pesticides, they still do crop rotations. And not everyone does this, but like, and I think this is true. Any field, if you're a dentist, if you're in, I don't know, if you're an engineer, when you're in something, you understand the nuances of it. And when someone, and so when it gets kind of like blown out of proportion to the outside world of like good and bad, you're like, it's not as simple as that. And so, yeah, I guess this is something here we go. We've hit it. It's something I still really care about. And I try and have that conversation as often as I can, because it's not as simple as, these ways that we do farming are necessarily bad. Now, I will also say in the same breath that if you compare the way that my parents farmed when I was a child, well, from my parents' childhood to my childhood, even now, the practices have changed immensely. There's so much more concern over what does go out on the land and the amount of nutrients that they're putting in, so they're not overloading it. Like the system is tightening. So the room for improvement is there, but it's just that painting of good and evil that I always kind of, my hackles sort of come up at.
But it sounds like growing up on a farm opened your mind, and made you question certain things, and seemed to have served you well when you did get to university, challenging your professor like that. So, so let's talk about your education itself. We know
Yeah.
why you became fascinated. How did you choose to do what you do?
This is a picture. I'm in the back there. I don't know if this is right. There's little, and that little head tuck in the corner. This is a picture in the Natural History Museum on McGill campus in Montreal. So that's where I did my undergraduate degree, and I did a double major, I guess, between biology and physical geography. Um, and I'm trying to think of, yeah, like off the get-go, I guess this is kind of the breadcrumbs to maybe becoming a guide, but I didn't even think about guiding as a profession or anything like that. When I first kind of took off from school, or even in some of those first couple summers, I was lucky enough to get different field jobs. So like this first picture here on the left, this was my first research job. And I'm actually holding a fossil it's one of the oldest fossils in the world. It's like 2 billion years old. Not, I wasn't there for fossils. I was there doing carbon and methane studies once upon a time. So that was like, I just love going north. And the one in the middle, I'm doing, what was I doing? So this is northern Alberta, and we are doing, essentially the province of Alberta is really cool for a few reasons, but ecologically, they're one of the few places that has their entire province gridded, and they do an ecological survey in the same spot every 5 to 10 years. So they have some of the best continuous data. Their sampling procedure for this is like copied worldwide because it's so well done. And so you kind of like stake it on area, you measure the soil, you measure the plants. If it's aquatic, I did the aquatic surveys once too, so you're on a boat and you're doing invert sampling and things like that. So that was kind of like my first real roaming in the woods. And then actually, usually don't say this one, but or the picture on the far right, I don't, again, didn't always work for the good guys. So I used to do gold exploration. I worked, this is me on a an explore crew. We called each other dirtbags. It wasn't quite as lush as saying gold diggers, but yeah, I spent summers roaming through Labrador, the Yukon, um, looking for gold.
Wow. Did you find any?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, so again, science has come a long ways. It's not quite the same. You can still go pan and things like that, but what they had us doing is we would go do soil samples. That's how I got hired because it was more soil sampling. Um, you would try to get a soil profile as deep as you could before you hit rock. So that could be, a few feet, sometimes more. Sometimes you did it with an auger. Other times, literally, like this is the most Indiana Jones I've ever felt in my life. Imagine like fully sweated through khakis, and I've got like a pack on my back. This is also the difference between like it's kind of very similar if everyone's been a tree planter or people can imagine tree planting, but this is worse because tree planting, you start with a heavy bag and it gets lighter. This is you start with a light bag and you fill it full of dirt until it weighs 100 pounds and you hike it up a mountain to a helicopter. Anyways, that part was insane. But at one point, I'm like, you're 28-day shifts on, you're sweaty, you're dirty. I have a machete over one shoulder. I have like an axe over the other that I use to dig through into the ground. And I'm like hacking through the brush trying to get to a helipad on time. And I just like stopped and looked at myself and I was like, this is insane.
But wow, that's absolutely incredible. So just those kinds of things, obviously you're out there exploring by yourself, so it seems logical that you would want to guide other people too, based on just those experiences and sharing that, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, uh, oh gosh, I hope I can make this joke and still have a job. I used to joke that I I used to joke that I seasonally hate people. And what I mean by that is that again, I said my life is very seasonal. I'm just that like I love people. I'm an extrovert. Right, but I sort of ended up for probably 6 or 7 years, give or take. Like I had this lifestyle where I spent half of the year in tourism and half the year in research, where I kind of got like this time sort of intensely by myself, and then this time to just really be with people. And so I started when I moved out here to the island. I started kayak guiding as well. It's kind of the picture on the right was when I was dog sledding in the Yukon. So one of my like quieter times when I was with people was I trained dogs for the Iditarod. Uh, I don't know how many years ago. 10 years. Oh my God, 10 years ago.
Wow.
And so the guiding thing, actually here, or well, I won't get ahead of this, but yeah. So then kind of the research, I've sort of always paired my life with kind of research and tourism, and the pendulum has swung back and forth with different eras. But this is just a picture of the community that I work in now. So my PhD is on essentially drought resilience and running a community monitoring program in a place where they just don't have enough water for salmon to spawn. So again, I've almost kind of swung it both ways, where now I'm like interacting with people through my research is interacting through people. It's kind of together again somehow.
Gotcha. So so the pursuit of your degree kind of also led you to guiding in sort of a organic way, it kind of seems like. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, yeah. I kind of ping pong back and forth until we ended up in the middle. Seems like it.
All right. So let me ask you this. What led you to natural habitat?
So, how I became a guide for natural habitat started in one of these research jobs. Actually, I had a friend named Sarah, and she was like, "Have you ever seen a polar bear? Do you want to see a polar bear? Do you want to go get a job in Churchill so we can go see polar bears?" And because we were like in our 20s and broke, and we're not going to be able to afford how to get up there on our own. And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And so I applied, or sorry, the next year came around and it was time and so I like applied, got a job and went, and she didn't. And I actually worked for NatHab and love to cook. So I actually worked as a prep cook the first year up there. And then I met the guides, and I was like, "Oh, I could do what you do." I was like, I've done subarctic research for the last 5 years. I've been a tour guide. It was all kind of like floating and spiraling in the same thing. So, okay, I just told that story, and that's usually the story I tell people of how I became a guide for Nat Hab. And then I kind of sat and thought on it for a little while. I actually wrote an article for Nat Hab about it after I figured this out. So on a surface level, that's how I became a guide for Nat Hab. Why did I want to go to Churchill? Why? I mean, obviously, everyone wants to see to some extent, everyone wants to see a polar bear. I have probably been chasing the subarctic or the Arctic since I was 10. We had well, how old are you in grade 6? You're 12. Does that make sense? I'm trying to
I
remember how
think
old you
so.
are.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay. So 11. My grade 5 teacher was named Mr. Myers, and he really loved to read, and he read us this book, Lost in the Barrens by Farley Mott, same guy who wrote Never Cry Wolf. And it's about these two boys who get separated essentially from everyone, and they have to survive a winter in the subarctic on their own. And that's what this whole story is about. And I loved that story. And I kind of forgot about it into adulthood. And about a summer ago, 2 summers ago, I looked up where this was set. And it's set about 200 kilometers or not quite 150 miles from Churchill. Like I subconsciously chased that notion for however many years and found myself like and this was not conscious, not right, but I was like, but I love Canada's north. I love it so much. I mean, I love the prairies where I'm from, but like, you ship me somewhere north, and I don't want to leave. Um, friends joke that it's a miracle I ever left the Yukon, but I decided to go to school, so that was the trade-off.
Well, it's amazing what things stick in our heads when we're kids, and even if we don't remember them, they plant those seeds that later grow into what we become as adults. And we'll have to check out that book. So that's what led you to want to be in polar bears and cooking too. You used your cooking skills to get your foot in the door, which is
I
again a really intriguing way to marry all your likes together. So can you talk about what trips you do lead now for NatHab?
Yeah, so now I'm a Churchill junkie. I started working for them in 2018. And so I will be back on the 23rd. So we're back up there for Northern Lights season, coming up pretty quick. But these days I do Churchill, so I do Churchill summer. So mostly gonna go spend time with some belugas. I run polar bear season, so that's the one I do the most of, and or have done the most historically. And even though I've worked there since 2018, this will actually be the first winter I'm going up there for Northern Lights. Mostly just has to do with it's the first time I've done my own research, so I'm available for them to come and do this. And yeah, so I'm really stoked to kind of get the trifecta, is kind of what we call them, lights, belugas, and bears. Sometimes it happens on a single trip. I've had it happen twice. Once that I'll really count it. A second time I'll officially count it, but it was less exhilarating for the guests, where you get to see on the same trip a beluga, Northern Lights, and bears. Because Churchill has this funny way of balancing out itself. There's a Greek myth where like you can't have too much talent or there's a consequence kind of thing. It's almost like Churchill made a deal with existence at some point. But so in the summertime, when you're there, it's beautiful, and you have all of depending on what season you're in, all the wildflowers are going crazy. This is fireweed. This is me very excited after however many years of working there. I finally got to the other side of the river to this old fort that was built in the 1700s. So I was very jacked about that moment. So in the summertime, you get the belugas come into calve, but they leave so they leave as soon as it gets cold because they don't want to get caught by the bay freezing. So belugas leave, bears show up as it gets cold again, and then the ice freezes, and then the bears leave, and then once the ice freezes, the bay is no longer cloudy. Let me back that up. The moisture coming off of Hudson's Bay, once it freezes over, you get clear skies, and then you get Northern Lights. So you can, in theory, a couple times a year overlap enough to get on the same day. Like if you stay up late enough and you chance to get Northern Lights at the end of the summer, you see a bear, but it's like the peak of each season is at a different time of year. So that's their balancing act between three. people often ask, are there bugs in the summertime? Yes, they are. But I will also tell you that this is the exact same day. And you can see there's 1 or 2 people in a net and other people that are not. So as long as you're kind of out on the coast in the wind, it's usually pretty good. And we kind of plan our hikes accordingly. But also you're there for the full experience. So it's a good time, I promise. And you'll have stories to go back with, bugs or no bugs.
I think
Um,
most of us seem to would picture Churchill covered in snow and always cold. It's amazing to actually see that it's green and lush in the summertime.
no, I mean, it can be so beautiful. And so, I mean, it can still be chilly, but yeah, in the summertime, you're out on the river, you're chasing the belugas. This is my most proud photo of my beluga season. It is insanely hard to get a picture with their head out of the water. You often only see them, right? This is like, anyways, for everyone else, like, oh, it's just a beluga head. This took thousands of photos to get one with it. Um, but
We can't
yeah, and
appreciate
then
that, but
yeah,
I'm sure
I'm just
I'm
I'm just
sure you
I'm
can.
just telling you what to appreciate. But yeah, it can be, this is a 75, almost 80-degree day, and we're out kayaking, and the belugas are coming up. Um, and they will sometimes come and nibble on your paddle. They'll nudge your boat. Here's what I should say. In the summertime, there are capsizes on the kayaks. It is not because the beluga pushed you in. It is because the beluga comes and nudges people and they get so scared they flip themselves. Um, so it's not the
So the
beluga's
belugas
fault.
they're playful.
Oh my gosh, they're so playful. They're so curious about you. Um, it's illegal in Canada to swim with whales, but you can paddle. The really cool one is the beluga board. So you can kind of float on this mat and then you can watch them come and swim around beside you. So as long as you don't reach out and touch them, as long as it has to do with oil and skin contact, because they are a mammal just like us. So we just want to keep them happy and healthy, not introducing any pathogens into their skin, into their environment. But yeah, they they are so curious about you. And like the moms will bring the calves alongside. It's almost like they're like, here, kid, this is what a tourist looks like. Um, I don't know. That's my theory, anyways.
Well, I guess
Um,
they have every right to check us out if we're checking them out, I say.
right? Seems fair. And you can see bears in the summertime. It's just, when you're there in the fall, there's so many bears. Whereas if you're there in the summertime, this is one who just swam across the river and is kind of looking back at us, giving us the evil eye. Because he wanted to stay on the town side, but the conservation officers chased him over and made him swim across as a safety concern. That's what we deserve the evil eye for. Um, so there was one bear there in the 3 weeks, or yeah, I think there's two. Maybe I saw 2 bears over 3 weeks, right? So it's just a much different ratio. So the odds are much lower. And you get to see other fun little critters in the summertime. This is the caribou checking us out as well. One of those animals you often only see from a side profile, and when you actually do see the front of your face, it's always just like, oh my gosh, you have the biggest bulbous eyes in the world. But it's the whole predator prey thing. They're trying to not be eaten, so they're trying to see everything.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's something we don't really think about. Um, so their eyes they're big, so are they easier to
The
see or?
Yeah, so it's the orientation, their ability to see. So when you think about a horse, or I guess I think about these things, here's the sign of me growing up on a farm. For you and I, your eye orientation is relative to sort of how you feed in the world, right? So we're omnivores, we see forward, and we can somewhat actually see, if you move your hands, you can see a little bit going backwards, but it cuts off here. Uh, Things that are prey to other things, like caribou, like horses, their peripheral vision goes behind them. They can see, so like a horse can see its back foot, right? So the advantage of having the eyes further out is that their ability to see what the heck is chasing them is much greater than you. You and I, we have to turn our head to achieve what they can do with basically just a glance.
Ah, thanks. That's interesting. Had no idea. I didn't know a horse could see his back legs. So that's learning something new today. Thank you for that. Um, so can you talk about how else Churchill is different in the summer as opposed to the winter? Which do you prefer?
Yeah. Um, I love them all for different reasons. I miss the cold. I live somewhere now where it doesn't really have winter, so I think right now still like fall and winter are my preferred ones. But summer, like the biggest thing, and you kind of said it yourself, Rob, at the beginning, like you expect Churchill to be cold, you expect it to be the best, but like we forget in the South, and it doesn't matter where you're from, I'm calling it South. If you don't live north of 60 degrees, if you're listening to this webinar, you live in the South, trust me, from these people's perspective. We associate the North with desperation, with survival, and it is that. It is a hard place to live. It can be very unforgiving. What we forget to associate Arctic and subarctic environments with is abundance. This place is firing with life in the summer. The flowers, the amount of waterfowl that is migrating, the shorebirds, like this place just comes to life with so much intensity. It kind of like, I think that's the joy of going there in the summertime. It reminds you to really live, like, because this place is like, I got 2 months of sunshine. We're going to go. We're going to create all of this. And then what we also forget is like all of that abundance, when those birds migrate back, they're bringing that energy with them. There's this loop that happens where we think about the tropics as where life is, but there are all these birds that go up north and bring all that energy to the south and keep going and like loop those two ecosystems together.
Fascinating. Again, your curiosity led you to these answers. How someone like me would have no idea about this. So we do find this incredibly fascinating. So let's talk about the Northern Lights a little bit. I know there are a lot of people interested in Northern Lights. Why is Churchill the perfect place to view them? What happens there that makes it so special?
Yeah, Churchill really did luck out. We did not build Churchill in 1929 when we built the railway with the intention of Northern Lights viewing, but thank goodness that we did. It has to do with the corona or the aurora oval. So I'll get nerdy for a little second here, real quickly. What causes the northern lights essentially is we have energy coming off of our sun. It interacts with our magnetosphere. Just think about Earth as a nice big magnet. And that energy, when it hits, it gets drawn to our poles. And again, I'm going to go talk about all of this in detail on the 19th for the other webinar. So I'm going to just leave it at that. But when it gets to the poles, that energy gets released as light. And so Churchill falls exactly in that little loop. This is looking at north and southern hemisphere, which remember, both ends are getting lights at the same time, northern lights and southern lights. It's just that there's so much less of a land mass in the southern hemisphere that we talk about them less because there's fewer people around to get to have that interaction with them. So this is an old book. This is an old textbook from 1957, 1958, but I like it because it does the same thing. So this just shows you the percentages of your odds of seeing northern lights. These are little isotherms. That's what these lines are, kind of contours. And here's Churchill, right where my mouse is, on that lovely little 100% line. Gotta love that. Wow, perfect, beautiful, it's great. So statistically, I think it works out that we get northern lights 3 out of 4 nights, or northern lights are visible 3 out of 4 nights in Churchill, right? So our trips are kind of designed around that. As long as you really don't have the unluck, knock on wood, of getting a bad blizzard the last 3 or 4 days, you're pretty much, you've got really great odds of having a chance to see them there.
They are absolutely amazing. Now, you said this is going to be your first time leading these trips.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
What are you looking forward to most about it?
I love the stars. I mean, obviously, I'm excited about Northern Lights and all of that, but like for as long as I can remember, my mom would wake us up for eclipses, meteor showers, you name it. And like I was the teenager who went to high school parties, came home from the party at like 2 or 3 in the morning, would put on my snowsuit, go lay on the bale stacks and just stare at the stars until I was so cold that I had to go in because I was going to get myself hypothermia. Like I love it. And I mean, like, not necessarily the the gases on Jupiter or that side of things. I love the stories. I love this idea that I stare at the stars and make these imaginary shapes and pictures in them. And those are the same shapes and pictures that someone made 3,000 years ago. And you learn the same stories and you map it out. And then what's even crazier once you grow up and move away from small town Saskatchewan is you realize that every culture has their own set of stories. And then you learn in these like duplicitous levels. And then the next tier of crazy is when you realize that cultures that have never met sometimes have the same story, which is mind blowing. Like if I go back here, sorry, we're on this for a second. Like, so the Big Dipper in a lot of cultures is a bear, which arguably these cultures have not had contact for like 10,000 years. And you're like, is that just a carry? It's a cool little like chicken and egg thing. It's like, is the original parent culture of all these northern cultures carried through that? Or is the bear just so valued in those respective cultures that the story has come like co-evolved? So very happy to talk about the stars till kingdom come. Orion is like my equivalent of a patron saint. I actually have this tattooed on my leg for various reasons, but we can, if you ever meet me in person, we can have a different chat about that one.
Yes, stars are absolutely fascinating. I, as a kid too, just loved to look at the stars when I was out camping. I was a Boy Scout, and we'd go camping in the wintertime, and just seeing the bright stars in the sky, just it was just fascinating to me, staring at them for hours. But with the northern lights shining, do they obscure the stars, or can you actually see them both at the same time?
You can see them both at the same time. If you are lucky, one of my favorite things is in August, there's the Perseids meteor shower. One of those, this is a long time ago now, but it's a research job I was working, but you can get them, like I've watched meteor showers through the aurora, just like all night. It's been absolutely stunning. Um, and you can't even believe it's real.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, definitely on my bucket list to come up and check out the Northern Lights. Again, like I said, I too have been fascinated about them since I was young, and I would love to come check it out. I'm sure there are plenty of other people like there just like me. All right, well, so
Come
let's
hang
switch.
out.
Yes, it's a beautiful place to be. It looks like it's summer or winter. What is the time of year that the Northern Lights are best seen?
Northern Lights are best sort of that okay, two parts of this. One is like you need the weather to, so you need the bay to freeze over. So that's kind of what's that like January to March period is the best. It is, I will be honest, the most bitter cold. But that cold also means clearest nights, which means best odds. So that's your trade-off. There's a Scandinavian saying that there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. So be brave, you can do it.
And we know NatHab has a ton of layers that they can help provide you if you don't have them on your own, I'm
Oh yeah,
sure.
we'll give you heavy boots and bring your own base layers. But we've got a nice big parka for you and some boots that you're not going to believe how heavy they are, but you'll be grateful that they're that heavy later on.
Wow, that's fantastic. All right, well, let's switch gears a little bit, and let's talk about conservation. As you know, NatHab believes in conservation through exploration. It's our mission, really. How important is conservation to Churchill and maintaining their diverse ecosystems? And are there any ongoing conservation projects that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I want to talk about something that's quite logistical, but really honestly just so important to the town of Churchill and almost kind of represents different eras that it's gone through. I think something we take for granted in most urban places is the fact that you set your garbage out on your corner and it disappears and it, and I mean even this is still a struggle in urban, that goes to a landfill and things like that. For better or worse, I'll leave that alone. We can circle back to that another time. But so Churchill for the longest time had an open dump. Right, so Churchill becomes a town in the 30s, becomes a military base, sort of end of World War II, and then sort of builds up into a town, has the port there, and so there's multiple open dumps, and those are huge attractants to polar bears. They're where the most amount of negative wildlife human interactions happen. Often, I mean, yes, for fear of the people, but honestly, mostly at the expense of the bear. A lot of bears got shot during this time. And then as the military pulled out, what happened was that they actually converted one of the facilities into a holding station. So essentially the garbage would get taken there, compressed, and then I can't remember what the interval was, but every so often then all of it would come out at once, be buried, and sort of reset that way. And it was amazing. The number of bear casualties dropped tremendously. But unfortunately, what was it, 2024, it burnt down. There was, something on the inside. I don't know if they ever figured out exactly what it was, whether it was a battery or even just like fermenting combustion. Something happened, and it was called L5. That was the old military name for it that stuck when it was a waste facility. And so it's now been, we're going on almost 2 years, and we are back to having an open dump, and we are back to having to manage, not saying that more bears, or the conservation team is pretty good, but essentially there's a new generation of bears that is getting raised up to interact with that garbage. It took 2 or 3 generations of bears for them to stop checking the old dumps, because there's so much maternal knowledge that gets passed over. Every time a mom had a cub, back in the 70s and 80s, she would circle and be like, oh, is that still a food source? Is that still a food source? I know 2 years doesn't seem like a lot, but that is generations of that is one solid generation of bear that will then raise her whole lifetime of generations to come and check that. And so the possibility of interaction there, it just kind of creates this sticky situation. And so like the town is trying to move forward on this of what they can do, but it's a really tricky one financially, right? I know tourism is a big industry there, but the town is really small. There's only 800 people that live there. The amount of resources it would take to reset this, trying to, that classic tug of war of, is it the town, is it the province, who's going to foot the bill, right? And so like on our side, we've been good. This has always been true, but we're really diligent. We pack in, and like literally with planes, pack in and pack out as much of what we bring in and bring out on our NatHab trips. We work really hard to manage our compost, everything like that. Just trying to be in town as responsibly as possible, but it's a solution that we really, really need, and we need it sooner than later, because every year that goes by is just more bears that we're going to have, propagating that knowledge into the future.
Are there any endeavors underway right now to help solve this problem? Do you have any idea what they're going to do?
So the talk has been for a while, even before it's burnt out, was to get the town an incinerator. And so there's kind of the lobbying between like how much that would cost, the scale it would need to happen. So that's sort of one feather in the hat. The other thing is going back to something similar to L5, which is building some sort of holding station and dealing with it that way. I think it's playing. I'm not sitting in any of those board meetings. I'm not privy to any of that. But I think it's kind of one of those conversations of, do you take the less expensive option that won't last for as long, or you take the more expensive option that will last long? Like they're kind of trying to find some middle ground in there, and also just trying to find ways also to, like some of the composting things, right? Like they are trying to get more of an industrial level compost level up, like also just trying to reduce waste, right? So there's a few different ways to attack the problem.
And how would incinerating this garbage, would that have its own ecological problems to it?
Mm-hmm. Again, so then if you're going to set up an incinerator, then what are the costs of that? What type of filters can you put on what's coming out of that? Flip side, can that incinerator be tied to an energy source? And can that be also partially, fueling the town or heating the water? Like, can you loop it somehow and try and lower the effects that way? So these things are never black and white, right? It's always someone's real life. It's always, people still having to go about their lives. And so trying to balance what's best for the town and what's best for the ecosystem. And ultimately, those are the same thing. I think that's always like when we talk about, it always drives me crazy. When we talk about, compromising between like, oh, like what's best, whatever I'll just say, economically versus ecologically, they are the same thing if you look far enough into the future. It's just the timeline that you're choosing that decision on is when they disagree. But eventually, at the end of the day, they usually line up. It's just, you have to be able to see that far. And sometimes that's, depending on the ecosystem or the situation, sometimes that's 100 years, sometimes that's 500 years. It's longer than any of us will perceive. And so it feels like a loss to the present, right? But you just have to learn how to think on that other scale.
We don't always do that well as human beings. Think beyond ourselves. So I guess that is something that we need to work on a little bit more. Are there any other conservation projects that intrigue you or you'd like to see move forward?
In Churchill or just in general, or?
Well, in Churchill, but in general
Yeah.
too.
I'm what else is kicking on up in Churchill? Um, I'm really hoping that we do a good job about controlling our soundscapes. This is more of a summer thing, but with sea ice loss, really, in Hudson's Bay, we're seeing more open shipping routes. And one of the best things we can do is sort of get that soundscape. It's just for the belugas. Sorry, let me back up a little bit. Um, right, belugas are linguistically so complex. They have such a beautiful language. We're just starting to pick apart individual words now, which is kind of exciting, and understanding a few tidbits of conversation. But what's happened that I don't want to happen in Churchill, that's happened in St. Lawrence, is that so Canada, St. Lawrence Seaway, lots of shipping, and the belugas there have had to change their language, and they've also like their population suffers quite a bit, but they're not able to communicate, and as such a social animal, to lose that is quite a loss to family groups and social structures. And so I'm really hoping, and this is an active conversation in town, as more shipping gets proposed there, is that they can kind of hold that soundscape for what the belugas need it to be, um, and build shipping around it rather than proverbially through it. Maybe is the right way to say it.
Oh, interesting. So let me ask you, as our guests are ecologically friendly, and they understand these challenges. If someone wanted to help out with the waste storage facility problem, are there any non-for-profits that help tackle some of these problems for Churchill? Any way we can help out?
Yeah. So there is, at least I can't speak for like the municipal level because that's, I'm not sure how that was, but they've been trying to get a larger composter going at the Northern Study Center. So if anyone wanted to Google Churchill Northern Study Center, that's a non-for-profit that runs a research station, but they also are kickstarting like what will hopefully be town-wide compost, which is pretty awesome. So if you wanted to follow up with that, this, as far as the soundscape goes, that one's not, I'd have to really think about that, of who we could send in that regard. Mostly because it's such a new issue that's being discussed. There's definitely lots of researchers that do it, but I can't think of like an NGO or anything that's out. I can think of maybe someone farther away, but not Churchill-esque.
Great. Well, thanks for talking about that. Sometimes this conversation can be a little sticky, but it's always important to talk about and cover, especially for NatHab. But
Absolutely.
let's change gears a little bit. Let's talk about what your favorite part of leading a Churchill trip is. Oh, and
Uh,
before that,
oh,
is there something that you would like our guests to know before we come to Churchill?
okay, I'll answer the second one first, and then I'll get to my favorite part. Folks, if you are coming up to Churchill, you will one day have the amazing chance to be one of these blue jackets hanging out with me under the Town of Churchill sign, maybe in snow, maybe in summer, to be determined. Regardless of the time of year, you're coming to polar bear country. And so the joys of going for a morning walk or from wandering from place to place kind of at will, it is much different being in Churchill. People, you don't walk alone. You don't, we talk about this a lot from a safety perspective. And I think NatHab does a great job of briefing people from a safety perspective. What I think I want people to really know is that it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel confined. It's going to feel like I've been here, but I haven't been able to like move my body in the way that I'm used to, or just, see a shiny thing and chase it. I'm a magpie. I love, right. But it's both. It's ultimately safety, but I always remember like it's your safety and it's the bear's safety. That one time you wander into the rocks, or but the idea is that it's such a different way, and the closest thing I can think to explaining it to someone who kind of maybe would click is like, there are gold mines where if you work there, you're not like, you get searched in and out, or there's the confines of the mine, they fly you and fly out and you don't really go. It's almost like that, like you get flown into this microorganism, this community in and of itself, and then you leave it and you're like, was I really in church? I'm like, you really were. But it's gonna feel weird. And so I kind of want to forefront that it's going to be amazing. It's going to be one of the most inspirational times you'll ever have. You're going to see a whole different way of living. But but be prepared to have to, exchange some of those personal liberties that you didn't even know were liberties because you're just used to being able to go roaming, in exchange for being in this really remote, extreme, beautiful environment. So that's my request, everyone. If you're coming to see us in Churchill, just be prepared for a different pace.
Good to know. And it's a safety thing more than
It
anything. Is
is,
that correct?
it is 100% safety. Yeah. And this is what we use this all the time, but like an abundance of caution is the correct amount of caution. And sometimes people are like, isn't this a bit crazy? And I'm like, you know, we set it to this level to keep you safe. And as a guide, like my job is to keep all of you safe. My job is to keep the bears safe. That means maintaining a level of behavior from every single person who comes in and out of there that doesn't leave anything that could cause that bear to want to have to come to town. I mean, they're passing a different way, but it's just like we have an absolutely no food policy on the outside of these rovers. And everyone's like, well, it's just a drink. It's just this. I'm like, yeah, sure. And then that one splash and that one crumb and the next one, it's like, if there's 10,000 people through here, that's 10,000 crumbs, right? Like we talk about this with our national parks. We talk about it a lot. And we all think that we're, oh gosh, here's another ramble. We're on it now. We all think that we're unique. We all think that, oh, this is the exception. We cannot all be the exception. That is not how you keep a place intact. That is not how you take care of it. You put the place before yourself. If you can do that, then the ecosystem survives and thrives, and we get to be part of it, right? And so that's the trade-off. You're trading Churchill's ecological survival for a little bit less of your normal mobility for 4 days. You can do it. I believe in you. It's going to work.
I believe it too. It's what a trade-off to experience such an amazing trip too. So I think it's well worth it. Plus, I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, and once you get there, you'll see what I'm talking about, but you'll kind of giggle. If you ever go on a trip and you notice this, like tell your guide, Kristina warned me, or Kristina, like it'll be a funny little inside joke if you ever get full circuit on this. Or with me. That would be hilarious.
All right, perfect. Good to know. So now that we've warned them what to expect, what is your favorite part of guiding a Churchill trip?
Um, so I have an inside bet that I have with other guides during bear season, which is how many times I can say blubber on a given day. I'm currently holding the record. I've said it 40 times in one talk. So next year we'll see how many. No, I mean I am sort of being silly. I love talking about blubber. It's one of my favorite things. Um, but that aside, I've never tried to explain this to anyone, Rob, so I'm gonna take a crack at it. And hopefully this makes somewhat sense. So have you ever read Journey to the Center of the Earth, like Jules Verne?
Oh
Okay, so
yeah,
do you remember the character, the Eiderdown hunter? He's kind of the guide that keeps them alive, more or less. And at the end of
yep.
it, he I can't remember. It's so funny. It's been so long I've read it, I kind of forgotten. But the main character at the end of it, the Eiderdown hunter, like it's over, and he just walks away and says goodbye. Like his job is over. They didn't die. Leaves without a backward glance. And as a guide, I sort of I remember I started thinking about this a while ago, but you sort of look at other guides around you, even fictional ones, right? And just being like, the strengths and weaknesses and how they do their job. And on a base level, like the Eiderdown hunter did his job. He wasn't at all ever emotionally connected to that character, but you were alive. I got you from point A to point B. He's a one-dimensional character that way. And then another mythological guide that I kind of think about, and again, maybe this is a bit weird, but Chiron is the guy or the character who guides souls from life into death. And it's usually portrayed very grimly. He's associated with death, and it's usually not a happy character. So I kind of just abstract that away for a second, but just this notion that it is a person's job to bring you from this one form of existence to another, right? You don't do it by yourself. There's someone there who waits for you to take you across the river, and you can't do it without him, right? And I've always kind of, again, it's a bit that heavy concept of life and death, but somewhere between these two, again, I'm not trying to be lofty, but they're different kinds of guides. So one way we talk about this in our field, and there's lots of different ways to think about it, but we call it there's something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so like if we think about the eider-down hunter, he is on the bottom. He is physiological. Did you have food? Did you have water? Did you not die? That he check, right? On the other end, you have this sense of transcendence. You have Chiron, this life and death. There's not a greater transition than life and death. We want to know what happens afterwards. Um, and so, okay, I'm trying to explain this. My favorite part of my job is not is to open up, to hold the space for people to move through this. And I have no idea where they're going to land, right? But my job is to make you feel safe, to provide this experience, which, you know, we do so many things in our life that we hold on to a lot of things. And the nice part about being a guide, or the rewarding part, is that my job is to hold those things for you so you can find out what's underneath. And sometimes it's just enough to take a break, and that's all people need on a trip. Sometimes it's, sometimes people are crying, like real tears, because of seeing a polar bear or seeing a beluga, but it's more than just that moment. They're tying it to some memory that I'll never know, and that's fine. I don't actually need to know what's going on. The gratifying part of my job is that I've created the opportunity for you to figure out where you need to land in there. Um, and like at the end of my trips, it's cheesy, but this is my like reward system for my trips. Is I always ask, what was your favorite part, or what was your unexpected part? Because I can guess, everyone is going to say, of course, seeing a polar bear or seeing the Northern Lights was, that was the highlight of their trip. But sometimes people say things that I could never have imagined. I had one guy from New York who's like, I love your guys' graffiti. He's like, I've never seen graffiti valued in a community, and this is amazing. Like, another person worked in food systems and was like, oh my gosh, you guys donate all your food to the school. Like, people's stories you'll never know it all, right? And so like, I love that my job is to create a space where you get to just, you know, move along those needs, and feel and actually have them met. As adults, we don't get that. We have that as children. Hopefully, we don't always even have it as kids, right? So it's, um, yeah, that's my favorite part of the job, is holding space for other people.
That is such a wonderful and unique answer. It really helps to show who you are as a guide and why we should come on a trip with you. Giving people an experience like that, I think it's really important. I do feel like um, allowing us to experience something, opening the door for us, as it were, the way you are, is exactly what a guide should do. And it's really fascinating to hear you explain it that way. So thank you for sharing that. That was really, really cool. Um, so you've been guiding now for a while, of course. Is there a special moment, or a really unique experience that stands out to you that you could share with us?
There are so many, and it's, your sense of normal skews when you're a polar bear guide. I'll admit that, or a blue guide or northern lights guide, right? You're so, um, but again, I kind of set it, and I didn't intentionally set it up this way, but um, so actually, when I was getting trained for belugas, so NatHab will send their guides out. They shadow a trip before they run it, regardless, just so that you understand logistics of that. So it's kind of nice when you shadow, because when you shadow, you get a little bit more free will. You're still actively participating with the group. You're still helping your main leader, but you also kind of get to step back and just sort of observe logistics and structure and things like that. And so my lead guide was like, hey, you go run this other part and I'll come over here. And so I got to just kind of go be on the water with the belugas, in a smaller group setting for a little while. And I mean, I won't give maybe the full context, but I was having a really hard time in life. I was like, man, like I was run down, and just like, I was like, do I have a soul anymore? I mean, sort of jokingly, but not really. Like, I was just like, things that used to make me happy weren't making me happy anymore. And first, so we kind of get out there, and this one beluga comes, and like, if it, like, they really do feel like they come to see you. Like, they turn their head. They're one of the only whales that have unfused vertebrae, so they literally do turn to look at you. And this whale comes and looks me in the eyes, and I fully just broke out crying. I'm not a sappy person. Like, I'm not like, oh my gosh, babies and puppies, like, they're cute, and yes, but like, I don't usually melt. And I just had the biggest cry sitting in a kayak by myself with this beluga for probably 10 minutes. And I didn't know how badly I needed that, to feel that like connection back with nature, and that, like, to reground. Right. And so in that little moment, I got the thing from the trip that I try to give to other people. And I was like, oh, okay. right? Like it just kind of like was like click, 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 click through my whole body and mind. I was like, okay, we're okay. It's gonna be okay. The world is still trying to take care of you, and you're still trying to take care of the world. Like, you got this.
Wow, that's a beautiful moment. Thank you for sharing that. That's, I mean, to make eye contact with a beluga like that must have just been, well, it obviously was a bit life-changing for you. So, wow,
Yeah.
thank you. Well, we're kind of running out of time here. So, and we've asked questions along the way. So we've tackled most everything. But so let's just find out what the future holds in store for Kristina Disney.
Oh, well, both for this audience and for my committee meeting on the 13th in however many days, I really would like to finish my PhD. It would be great if I could not be in grad school anymore. It's been more years than I've been honest with you. I love what I do. I'm very happy that I do it. I would simply like to close a chapter. So there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Knock on everything you possibly can. I think I'll be done. I thought I'd be done by the end of 2026, but I might like be 90% done and then just have to clean things up that first term in 2027. But I should be all done. And then, no one likes this, but there's a lot of different life paths, and I don't really know. I'm kind of a 6 month to sort of 2 years max is about as far as I can really plan. Um, I'd like to do some more work for NatHab. I'd like to do some expeditions of my own, go back to the Yukon. There's places I haven't been in a while. Um, I know we were supposed to have an answer for this, and honestly, right now I don't. And I'm just settling with that being okay. So finish PhD and then see what path opens up after that.
Well, that's completely okay because nobody really knows what the future holds in store for us. We just have to keep our eyes open and discover what happens. So, good luck on finishing your PhD. I know we've been talking about this for a couple of years now behind the scenes. So, I'm excited for you. I am rooting for you.
Thanks. Someday it'll be done. We're gonna get there. It's gonna happen.
It absolutely will. Well, Kristina, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today and doing this interview with us. I knew you would be great for this because we always have tons of great conversations before these webinars start. So I'm glad that we could let the rest of you in on our conversations.
He's telling the truth. Rob and I talk for like 10 or 15 minutes before each one. I'm like, oh yeah, right. We're supposed to do a webinar.
So I'm sorry if we're a little late when we talk, but
Mm,
as you can see, Kristina is fascinating. So Kristina, thank you so much. And I'd
thank you,
like to
Rob.
thank, you got it. And I'd like to thank everybody who tuned in today. So if you are interested in information on how you can travel to Churchill, please give us a call or you can send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. Join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. We'll see you next time.